left behind while the rest of the world marches on. No jobs, no innovation.
Mr Chairman.
Honourable David Parker.
Mr Chairman, it's always a pleasure to follow the Honourable Shane Jones, because while he speaks with passion and with panache, you can certainly be sure that when you analyse the substance of his contribution, there's very, very little in it. But I took particular delight in having the opportunity to follow Labor's economic development spokesperson, the Honourable David Parker, the great Labor Party strategist, who appears to have taken them from a solid base of around 30% in the polls to about 25% and still declining. And it's interesting to note that even though he is the economic development spokesman, he didn't actually speak to vote economic development. He spoke entirely to vote finance, a debate we had last week, Mr Speaker. I'm very proud of the role that the Ministry of Economic Development is playing in this economy. When we became government in 2008, the Ministry of Economic Development was described to me as an ATM machine. It simply doshed out money all over the show with no focus on delivery of results. So what we've done over the last 2.5 years is very much focused this agency on to developing economic growth. And we have a very simple agenda, 6 drivers that are important for the economic growth agenda. We have to support better science and innovation, and there's a huge story to tell there about what we've achieved. Well, the member yells out we've cut R&D funding. Again, Steve Chadwick is wrong. Again, she's wrong. Ministry of Vote Science, last budget, $170 million being made available to knowledge-intensive companies to grab a grant from MED so they can undertake research. What about the primary sector? She says we've cut research, $477 million being spent on primary sector R&D. Today, what did Labor do? They talked about a $1 billion project. Do you know how successful it was, Mr Chairman? Not one company applied to take it up because they had no faith in their government. So Steve Chadwick is not right. This government hasn't cut research into R&D. We've increased it and increased it substantially because we know the importance of spending money on science and research to get this economy moving, Mr Speaker. The other thing that needs to be remembered in this debate is the mess that government left at the end, the previous Labor government left at the end of 2008. A legacy of 10 years of deficits which had to be addressed, and the only way you can address this is to get your tradable sector of the economy, your export sector, trading properly. And what had happened is they had completely unbalanced the economy. They actually had the tradable sector of the economy. Mr Jones ought to know that. He sat around the cabinet table. He had the tradable sector of the economy in recession from late 2004. Late 2004. So you can stand here and blame the global financial crisis. No one had heard of it in 2004, and yet New Zealand had its tradable sector in recession, masked by a massive increase in government spending, which was completely unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable, and I think that member knows it well. When we examined vote economic development in the Select Committee, I was pleased with the acknowledgement from that Select Committee that we're addressing the issues of Christchurch earthquake. And I get annoyed every day when now we have the likes of Clayton Cosgrove coming into the House day after day trying to play politics with the situation that people are in down in Christchurch. What we need is this Parliament to work together to face the biggest economic challenge we face, and that's getting our second largest city rebuilt. And it's not helped by the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove taking every opportunity to play cheap politics with this issue. Mr Speaker, the final issue I want to mention is, of course, 32 days to the Rugby World Cup. This has been a real focus for the vote economic development. Well, Helen Clark got the cup here, that's true. and I'd be interested to see whether she bothers to come back and watch a single game. I bet she doesn't. But just take the opportunity, all New Zealanders, of making the most of the Rugby World Cup.
David Shearer.
Chair. Well, I mean, it's following that, Mr. Chair. I mean, there was so much inaccuracy there. I just want to point out a couple of points to start with. First of all, the 10 years of deficits. I don't remember 10 years of deficits. Would I